said, I'm Linda McHenry, host of The Writer's Voice, a podcast where we focus on writers and their craft in their books. And today, my guest is Matty Dalrymple. Matty, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you. How are you?
I'm doing fine. Now, Matty is the author of 3 different series of thriller and suspense novels. She lives in Pennsylvania and vacations in Maine and Arizona, which are the settings of her novels and short series. She's a member of Mystery Writers of America, Sisters in Crime, and Brandywine Valley Writers Group. Sorry about that.
No problem.
So what I find interesting is that you do all these series. What made you like to do series of books rather than standalones?
Well, I actually have 2 fiction series, and then I have 1 nonfiction, what will become a series. But my first series was the Ann Kinnear Suspense novels, and I started that out not knowing whether it was going to be a series or not. And that was The Sense of Death. I published that in 2013. And it's about a woman who can sense spirits, and she gets involved in a crime that has already happened. So it's not a traditional whodunit mystery. The reader has seen the crime happen, and Ann Kinnear sort of stumbles on it by accident. And because she has a business that's related to engagements where she goes out and assesses places or for spirits or communicates with them for her clients, all run very professionally, kind of like an accounting firm. It lent itself to a series. And so in 2015, I published the second of the Ann Kinnear Suspense novels, which is called The Sense of Reckoning. And that's the one that was based in Maine, based on a fire that took place on Mount Desert Island around Bar Harbor in 1947 that burned a lot of the island and parts of Bar Harbor. And then I had another idea for another story that sort of followed the overall theme of my books, which is what happens when an extraordinary ability transforms an ordinary life. But it was not an ability that lent itself to the Ann Kinnear world. And so I spun up my second series, which is the Lizzie Ballard thrillers. And I have 3 books in that series, Rock, Paper, Scissors, Snakes and Ladders, and The Iron Ring.
Now, were any of those characters in that series from the first one? Like, did you link them, or was it completely different?
It's pretty much different, except for a couple of little Easter egg cameos that if people are very familiar with the Ann Kinnear books, they might recognize the people in the Lizzie Ballard books, but no major characters. But there is overlap in setting because both of them start out in the Philadelphia area, which is my home base. Philadelphia, Chester County, Wilmington, Delaware, the Jersey Shore. So sometimes Ann and Lizzie find themselves in the same locations, but no overlap in characters.
Do you think that is one of the things, like when people write series, a lot of them tend to use the same characters or the same cast of characters, I should say. You know, they start out with the main characters and then go to minor characters. How do you see setting playing a role in series? Do you think you can do a series of series based on setting?
Well, I do like that repeat of location. For example, the third Ann Kinnear book, which is the one I'm working on now and that will come out later this year, is based around an airport. And in real life, it's New Garden Airport in Tuff-Kenneman, Pennsylvania, but I don't want to call it New Garden Airport. So I've played around with a variety of fictional names for the airport, but that area is in Pocopson Township, which is where the bad guys of the Lizzie Ballard thrillers live. So I think it's fun for readers if you're reading along. It's fun in any case when you recognize somewhere that's a real place, even if it's under a fictional name. But I think it's doubly fun when people say, oh, I remember something else happened at that location. So yeah, I enjoy using setting almost as a common character between the 2 series.
Now, when you have the series, do you have 2 different characters, obviously 2 different lead characters. Do you like to write the same type of character, the same characteristics, or do you like them to be completely different?
They just turned out to be pretty different. Ann Kinnear in the suspense novels is a woman who has this paranormal ability and feels very uncomfortable about it. Her brother, who runs her business, is sort of her champion and is trying to convince her that it's really a good thing.
Mhm.
But throughout her life, she's had these circumstances where people think she's crazy or people think she's lying about what she can do. And it's difficult for her. And as a result, she's sort of withdrawn from society a little bit. She has this very tight group of friends, her brother, her brother's husband, Scott, the police detective that she becomes, in whose case she becomes involved in the sense of death, but has really kind of withdrawn because of her discomfort with her own ability. In the Lizzie Ballard thrillers, it's really the opposite. Lizzie is a young woman. In the first book, she's very young. It starts out when she's a child, but for most of that book, she's about 16. And she's someone who, because of her ability, and I don't want to say right off what it is because it would be a bit of a spoiler, but she should really be withdrawing herself from society. And yet she's somebody who really loves people, loves relationships, loves to connect. And so she's putting herself out there in circumstances where she really probably should not be.
So they're
So
kind of like two sides of a coin then.
exactly, yeah.
Okay. Do you see yourself writing any other series?
I don't think so. I did write a standalone last year that was not anything to do with unusual or paranormal abilities. I'm shopping that around to agents right now. That's definitely more of a standalone. I can imagine coming back to the Lizzie Ballard thrillers.
Mhm.
The three that I've written are really an arc, it's a trilogy, but I can imagine coming back to that probably when Lizzie was older. She's 17 when the third book ends, and I can imagine coming back when she's, more of a true young adult, maybe in her early 20s, because I
Mhm.
think that would be an interesting spin. I think I see no end for Ann Kinnear. I think of Ann Kinnear as sort of my flagship
Mhm.
series. So right now I feel that between the two of those, that will keep me busy for some time to come.
And do you think that readers are really, really into the paranormal aspect of your characters? Or is it something that you're doing because you enjoy it? Because you always hear writers, do you want to write what you want to write, or do you want to write what people want to read? Or is it a combination of both?
Well, I wrote the Ann Kinnear books because I had a very specific idea that relied on Anne being able to sense dead people.
Okay.
But it's not sort of steeped in that. And so I've been hesitant to market it heavily to people who like the more intensively paranormal books.
Mhm.
And many of my reader reviews say, I usually don't like books like this, but,
Okay.
and then give me a good review and a high star rating. So it's interesting. The third book is going to be coming out later this year, and I think it's going to be a little bit more. There's a little bit more of the paranormal aspect. So I'm going to experiment with marketing more heavily to groups of readers who are really focused on that particular genre and see
Mhm.
what the reaction is.
And how are you doing in the pandemic? Here we are, that hopefully the tail ends of being confined at home. Has that affected your writing any?
It has really not in a bad way. I mean, certainly, as I've said to other people, if it weren't for the fact that it's a tragic situation for many people, not, obviously from a health point of view and also from the point of view of
Mhm.
people's economic well-being. But other than that, it's really kind of my best life because I can write all day, and in the evenings, my husband and I have Zoom cocktail parties with our friends. One
Okay.
thing that I've started doing that isn't particularly dependent on the current situation, but two other authors and I, who are both members of the Delaware Valley Sisters in Crime, have a daily writing sprint. So at 2 o'clock every day, we get on Zoom and we chat for a couple of minutes, but we spend most of the time doing timed writing sprints. And
Okay.
it's been a huge benefit. I was skeptical, and then I actually interviewed Julie Duffy of storyaday.org on my podcast, The Indie Author,
Uh-huh.
and she talked about this, and I said, really? You get on Zoom and you just write? She said, yeah, it's great. And I said, okay, I have to try this myself.
It's sort of like
So
being in an office and there's other people there that you're working with, but you can't chat. You need to get stuff done.
exactly. It is that you have to be there at 2 o'clock every day, and there are two other people or however many other
Uh-huh.
people who are relying on you. And then you're sort of duty bound to write for that hour. You
Mhm.
can't, the rule is you can't go on social media.
Well, there you go. There
Yeah.
you
So
go.
It's been hugely helpful and a really nice way to build community with a couple of other authors in the area that I would not otherwise have been able to do.
Well, that's great. So why don't you tell everybody what your most recent books are and where they can find you online?
Well, my three most recent books have been the three Lizzie Ballard thrillers, which are Rock, Paper, Scissors, Snakes and Ladders, and The Iron Ring. If someone is starting out on my books, I would recommend they start out with Rock, Paper, Scissors because they'll have a whole set of three there waiting for them. And if they'd like to find out more about me, they can go to mattydalrymple.com, and that's Matty with a Y, Matty. And that will give them links to all the locations where they can buy my books online on all the major online retailers.
Okay, well, that is great. Thank you for joining us. Hope you come back sometime in the future. Take care.
I would love to. Thank you so much. This was fun.
It certainly was. Bye-bye.